On Friday morning, Venezuelan authorities denounced a sabotage caused a massive attack against the national electric system of the country. World Health Organization confirmed a humanitarian polio vaccination for the population in the Gaza Strip. And in Russia, a total of more than 100 speakers from 23 countries participated in the BRICS Plus Young Diplomats Forum in the Republic of Bashkortostan. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Early Friday morning, Venezuelan authorities denounced that a sabotage caused a massive attack on the electric grid that affected several states in the country. In the Ministry of Communication denounced that Venezuela has been a victim once again of an electrical sabotage that caused damages in several territories of the country, including the capital. At this moment, the electric cabinet is working for the total restoration of the service. Freddy Ñañez, Minister of Communication, declared that a special operation has been activated in Caracas for surface transportation and also stressed that nobody will take the peace away from the Venezuelan people. On the other hand, Diosdado Cabello, the new Venezuelan Minister of Interior, also denounced that last Tuesday, the blackouts that occurred in several parts of the country were the result of terrorist attacks carried out by the extreme right wing. And in this context, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, addressed the situation through his Telegram account. In this way, he said that, as always, he stood by the people and is in charge of the situation facing this criminal attack against the national electric system. He said that he has said it and repeated it: calm and sanity, nerves of steel. He also said that the desperate fascism attacks the people, but together they would overcome this new assault. We will always prevail, he finished. And the Minister of Internal Affairs of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, denounced that the recent attacks on the country's electoral system have affected several states. Let's listen.
We have information of attacks that were going to be made on the electric system this week, including an attack that was immediately dealt with, but we already had the certainty from information that they were preparing attacks against our electric system. And today in the early hours of the morning they executed it. However, our people have already learned from so many attacks, from so many attempts to violate their rights, so immediately our people were activated. We have total tranquility in the country.
Interior Minister Cabello also pointed out that the electric power is being gradually re-established in several sectors of the Great Caracas.
A contingency plan that our armed forces have, all services are being checked, they are being reviewed, and at this moment the network is starting to be energized and some sectors here in Caracas are beginning to receive electricity. This is a process that is happening little by little, but it is a process that is progressing with the security of what is being done so as not to make mistakes. Hence why the attitude of our people is very important.
And also in this context, the Minister of the People's Power for Transport of Venezuela, Ramón Velázquez, informed that they are working to guarantee the normality of public transportation. Let's listen.
Indeed, since the early morning, once the situation announced by the Minister of Communications, Ñañez, was known, well, we are reactivating the whole transportation contingency. One of them is the transportation service provided by the Caracas subway, being the most important mass transportation service in Caracas.
And earlier today, the Minister of Communication and Information of Venezuela, Freddy Ñañez, informed of the electrical sabotage that affected the service supply nationwide and reassured the population on the current work that is being done to restore the service. Let's listen.
As we know, today at approximately 4:40 a.m., there has been an electrical sabotage at national level that has affected the service supply in the country. This electrical sabotage was detected in time, and the Vice Presidency of Public Services and the entire Corpo-Elect team are working from the very moment the electrical sabotage occurred, to restore the service throughout the country. A contingency operation has been activated for Caracas and for the state of Miranda, which has to do with the supply of superficial public transportation, so that those who are heading to work can get to their workplace, those who are going to do their errands today can also do them. And they can be sure that both in Caracas, Miranda, and at a national level, all the protocols will be activated throughout the morning while we have the contingency.
Furthermore, the Communication Authority updated the Venezuelan people on the governmental response to the sabotage perpetrated against the national grid system.
All the teams are working indeed in GUI, which is the matrix area, where electricity is generated nationwide. We have already experienced this. It is something that unfortunately we went through in 2019. Now we are much more prepared. We have much more capacity to respond. And in fact, what they tried to do on July 28th, what they tried to do on July 29th and July 30th, they could not have done it in general. Today, from trying so hard, the evil sometimes ends up succeeding.
And we continue in Caracas, Venezuela. In this case, we go to our correspondent, Rolando Segura, who shows us how the capital is dealing with the attack on the national electric system.
Yes, it's a pleasure to greet you from Caracas, Venezuela. This is the situation here at this time in the capital, where there have been reported an attack against the national power grid, which have been affecting the 24 states of the country, partially or totally. But that's what been recorded in the different areas of the country. Meanwhile, the people in Caracas have go out to their daily activities on this day, on Friday, in which the country has started the day with a new attack on the national power grid. The authorities have confirmed that that they have activated a system of transportation for people to commute to work. Venezuelans, men and women, have started their day on going out on their daily activities in today, in which the country in less than a week have been victim of 2 sabotages on the electric grid. In this opportunity, 24 states have been affected. I was telling you, partially or totally. Authorities have insisted that they will keep posted the population on social media and on public, fundamentally on Telegram. Let's recall that in this opportunity there have not been damages significantly on the data transmission on the internet, but they have already failing in some areas of the country.
Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, declared on Thursday that if the government had any new information about the so-called Ayotzinapa case, he would meet with the family of the 43 teacher training students who disappeared in the state of Guerrero almost 10 years ago. The President said that the most important thing is to find the boys, and then they would meet again. Otherwise, they would only deliver the last report of everything that is being done. At the same time, social organizations and even the mothers and fathers of the students of Iguala in Ayotzinapa claim that it was a commitment unfulfilled by the government of the Fourth Transformation headed by López Obrador. In other news, in Ecuador on Thursday, 5 members of the Coordination of Organizations for the Unity of the Left managed to reach an agreement aimed at the construction of solutions to solve the crisis in the South American nation. Let's listen.
For the defense of dignified life, peace, sovereignty, social organizations, political parties, and movements of the center-left and progressive tendency, in the framework of the meeting of social organizations of the country, we have formed a technical table, and after several working meetings, we present to the country the following agreement with a view to programmatic unity and the construction of immediate solutions to the current crisis that Ecuador is experiencing.
Bolivian judicial authorities confirmed on Thursday that the trial for the Sencata massacre against former de facto President Johnny Áñez, former ministers, former military and police commanders in 2019 will begin on September 2nd. The State Prosecutor's Office said that the 4th Criminal Sentencing Court of the city of El Alto has set the hearing for the beginning of the oral and public trial for Monday, September 2nd. Áñez and other former authorities were accused on genocide and other crimes after the attack against civilians in November 2019 in the Sencata area in the city of El Alto in the department of La Paz. We now move on to other topics. The World Health Organization confirmed a humanitarian pause on combat for polio vaccination for the population in the Gaza Strip. During a virtual press conference, the agency's representative in Palestine, Rick Peppercorn, assured that more than 1 million doses are already in Palestinian territory, while another 400,000 will be shipped soon. Peppercorn also noted that the campaign will begin in central Gaza with a 3-day lull in the fighting, then move to the south and then to the north with similar periods of cessation of hostilities to support vaccination. It is important to note that the parties reached an agreement shortly before the Security Council held an emergency meeting on the humanitarian situation in the enclave.
A 2-round polio vaccination campaign will actually start on the 1st of September in the Gaza Strip. During each round of the campaign, the Palestinian Ministry of Health, in collaboration with W.H.O, UNICEF, UNRWA, and partners, will provide 2 drops of the novel oral polio vaccine type 2. So-called NOPV2, to more than 640,000 children under 10 years of age.
The armed forces of Yemen revealed on Thursday new images of the attack carried out against the Greek oil tanker Sounion, which was heading to Israeli ports. The military information headquarters of the Yemeni army, Al-Amam al-Harbi, emphasized that the ship was attacked for ignoring the law prohibiting the entry of vessels to the port of the occupied Palestine in the Red Sea. For his part, the head of the Sana'a negotiating delegation announced that the Ansarullah agreed to tow the damaged tanker after negotiations with the European parties and concerns about a possible environmental pollution disaster. Since November 2023, Yemen has carried out military operations against Israeli targets and their allies in the framework of support for the Palestinians under attack in the occupied territories. Also, in this context, for the second consecutive day, the Israeli occupation forces continue their aggression against the governorates of Yenin and Tulkarm in the occupied West Bank, the largest since the 2002 invasion, while withdrawing from Tubas. The aggression in the northern West Bank has so far caused the death of 18 citizens, including 8 in Yenin, 6 in Tulkarm, and 4 in Tubas, according to medical sources, bringing the total number of deaths in the West Bank since October 7th to 668. And in other news, August 30th marks the International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearances in honor of the memory of men and women victims of this crime in all countries of the world. This date was established by the United Nations General Assembly in December of 2010, when it was observed that it was commemorated in several countries around the world. However, in Latin America, the date of August 30th was proposed in 1981 by the Latin American Federation of Association of Relatives of Disappeared Detainees as the international day that commemorates this. The purpose of this commemoration is to reflect on the horror of this crime, considered a crime against humanity by the OAS and the UN. And we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you will be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. In Russia, a total of more than 100 speakers from 23 countries participated in the BRICS Plus Young Diplomats Forum in the Republic of Bashkortostan on Wednesday. On this first day, the attendees discussed issues related to the main areas of interaction between the BRICS countries and their partners. The main topic of discussion focused on cultural and humanitarian cooperation in the BRICS areas. In addition, the young diplomats also discussed the world economy and the financial system. On these issues, the Deputy Director of the European Department of the Venezuelan Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ernesto Bordier, emphasized the importance of using the national currencies of the association in international transactions. We now move on to other topics. In Ecuador, in the outskirts of Quito, a flora and fauna sanctuary with endemic and threatened species confront environmentalists with the mining companies over legal loopholes. A 2023 referendum banned all new mineral extraction in 124,000 hectares of the Andean Chocó, a rainforest rich in gold and part of the World Biosphere Reserve. However, environmentalists and the majority of the inhabitants maintain that nothing has changed since then in the area covered by the decision taken by the majority of the capital's electorate as mining continues, and they demand that the national government and local authorities order the suspension of these activities.
The people were loud and clear. 70% of the district's population told the authorities that in the Andes Chaco, in the Biosphere Reserve, in these territories, we do not want mining and this has to be respected. They are very fragile ecosystems, taking hummingbirds into account, for example. Imagine in these species, these very small animals, the implications of an explosion to break the rock, the opening of a road to be able to bring in large trucks, tractors, it would be terrible. It would wipe out all this biodiversity.
And human rights stories of citizens from 33 countries reached the screens of more than 30 municipalities and 8 cities in Colombia in the 11th edition of the International Human Rights Film Festival, presented from August 22nd to 30th. More details with Valeria Cardona, our correspondent in the country.
The story of this possession in La Esmeralda and Loma de Tigre, Acacias, in the department of Meta, which began in 2012 after the arrival of the oil companies Repsol and Ecopetrol, comes to the Cinematheque in Bogotá as part of the International Human Rights Film Festival.
The dispossession is that their livelihood, their means of living, their water, their local economy, their culture were taken away. Everything has been perverted. Community life is no longer the same as it was before. Although some of the inhabitants are still the same because others have already left, community life is over, among other things because the oil issue has created a huge floating population that means that the community decisions are no longer made by them. but by the floating population. That on one side. On the other side, access to resources and access to public services is non-existent because the municipality does not provide them, and because the commitment made by Ecopetrol to build an aqueduct has been trying to be built for more than 10 years, and it has not been achieved.
Esta historia que nunca fue creada para...
This is a story that was never created for the movie theaters, but rather to systematize the process of accompaniment by the Corporation of Support to Popular Women, called govt, was filmed with a single camera by its producer, Juliana Echeverri, who during a long process managed to focus on the testimonies of the women of Acacias to denounce the serious situation to which they have been subjected for more than 10 years.
The problems are many and they are of different kinds, aren't they? So there is the water, but there are also the smells, for example, the noises, and besides that, it is difficult to show it. How do I tell people, look, what is happening here is that it is smelling very bad, or this is what it sounds like here? Well, it is very difficult to capture this with a camera and a microphone, but I think the women have very convincing testimonies.
Una vez en la fundación para la que trabaja Juliana vieron los resultados.
Once the foundation Juliana works for saw the results, they thought they could submit it to platforms and festivals that will help them make it more visible to reach more people and have an echo in the denunciation of this problem and raise awareness about the importance of water.
De nada, siempre las comunidades insisten, oro no, petróleo no, agua sí.
First and foremost, the communities always demand no gold, no oil, yes water. And the fact is that water is what is going to allow us to continue living in human conditions as well, to allow species and life itself to survive. Therefore, this type of action is of enormous strategic value, enormous, and of course we are very interested in the fact that in some way we are thinking about reestablishing the rights of the population and of this type of women who have been so seriously affected by this issue.
El cortometraje de 22 minutos.
The 22-minute short film was presented together with the production Sex Penguin, a short film that portrays the story of a letter of forgiveness from a friend. De Genere, a film about the dreams that a 60-year-old man fulfills for his deceased best friend and lineage. The story of a secret buried by a Biblian that speaks through the voice of a relief. All directed by women and presented at the International Human Rights Festival.
Valeria Cardona, telesur, Bogotá, Colombia.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.